Welcome back to the horror storytelling channel Bong Toi Trong Dem. Today, I'm honored to introduce a chilling story titled The Haunted Mansion. Before we begin, if you find this story engaging, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel to support my work. Thank you for listening. And now, let's get started. Dalat, a late winter afternoon, thick fog spilled over the narrow streets, swallowing rows of old pine trees. Ha Min sat quietly in a rustic coffee shop by Zon Hong Lake. His eyes followed the rippling water, his heart weighed down by unending grief. Slowly, he set his coffee cup on the table. His deep voice murmured as if speaking to himself. Min clenched his fists slightly and whispered, "Little sister, if there really is another world, are you waiting for me there?" The sound of soft footsteps pulled Min back to reality. Lan An, his close friend from their university days, walked in carrying her familiar camera. Her face carried both a playful charm and a flicker of concern. Lan An placed the camera bag on the chair, her eyes scanning Min before she spoke. She frowned slightly and asked, "Min, you've looked so pale lately. Are you still haunted by what happened to your sister?" Min lifted his gaze, his eyes, shadowed by sleepless nights, shone with determination. He nodded and replied, "Yes, I can't stop thinking about it. Her death, something about it doesn't feel right. I believe only by exploring what lies beyond logic will I truly understand." Lan An tilted her head, her voice half teasing, half serious. "Don't tell me you're planning to go ghost hunting." Min let out a faint laugh, tinged with bitterness, tapping his fingers on the table. He answered, "Not exactly ghost hunting, but searching for the truth. Out on the outskirts. Have you heard about that abandoned mansion in the woods? People call it the Haunted Mansion." Lan An's eyes flickered nervously. She shook her head and gripped the strap of her camera bag tightly. Lowering her voice, she spoke slowly. "I've heard, but it's just a rumor. They say a family was massacred there, leaving behind a curse. Min, don't do anything reckless." Leaning forward, Min's voice was steady. "It's exactly because of those rumors that I must go. I want to write an investigative piece. Not just to make headlines, but maybe my sister will send me a sign." Lan An stared at him for a long moment. With a sigh, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder and declared firmly, "If you've decided to go, then I'll go with you. At least I won't let you face danger alone." Gratitude softened Min's eyes. He nodded slightly. By late afternoon, the two of them followed a winding slope leading to a small market on the outskirts. Hoping to gather more information, the air grew heavier as whispers about the mansion spread among locals. One name kept coming up, old Madame Tu, a former maid who once worked in the mansion during her youth. They found her wooden cottage nestled beneath the pine canopy. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman with a hunched back. Her cloudy eyes held a sharp, guarded glint. Leaning on her cane, she eyed the two strangers and rasped, "What business do you have with me? Children?" Min stepped forward politely, bowing slightly as he answered, "Ma'am, we heard you once lived and worked in the abandoned mansion deep in the forest. We'd like to know more about that place." Old Madame Tu trembled slightly. Her lips pressed tightly together. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the whistling wind seeping through the cracks of the door. At last, she sighed and spoke in a grave tone. "It's best not to mention that place again. No one who enters ever comes back in peace. Some never return at all." Lan An instinctively stepped back, her hand clutching Min's arm. Her voice was soft, trembling. "Min, please listen. Maybe we should let this go." Min tightened his grip, his eyes locked firmly on Madame Tu as he declared, "Ma'am, I have to go. Even if it's dangerous, I need to know the truth." Madame Tu tapped her cane lightly against the floor, her cloudy eyes flashing with unease. Slowly, she spoke, each word falling into the heavy air like a curse. "If you've decided, then remember this. Inside that mansion, in the living room, there's a large mirror. Never stare into it for too long, or you may never see yourself again." Her words thickened the air with dread. Lan An gripped Min's shoulder tightly, while a shiver ran down his spine. That evening, in a small inn, the two sat together, planning Min spread out a map, his finger pointing to the western forest. He spoke with determination. "We'll need a guide. The forest is too dense. We could easily get lost. I heard about a man named Fong, a local guide who knows the area well." Resting her chin on her hand, Lan An asked quietly, "Min, are you sure Fong will agree? Everyone here fears that mansion." Min gave a faint smile and replied, "If money's involved, I'm certain he'll come, and the more he knows about that place, the more useful he'll be to us." The next morning, they found Fong at an old bus station. He was around 30, tall and lean, his eyes carrying both experience and unease. Crossing his arms, Fong studied them before speaking in a gravelly tone. "You two really want to go there? I won't stop you, but know this, once inside, there's no guarantee you'll make it out." Min stepped forward, his voice firm. "We need a guide, and we're ready to pay well. All you have to do is lead us to the mansion. After that, we'll handle the rest." Fong's brow furrowed as if torn between greed and fear. At last, he drew in a deep breath and nodded. "Fine, but one thing, if it gets bad, I'll run. Don't blame me." Lan An's voice was cold but resolute. "As long as you take us there, that's enough." Fong nodded again, a shadow passing over his expression, as though he already knew something horrifying awaited them. That night, Min sat by the window of the inn, gazing at the heavy fog outside. In the small mirror on the table, he suddenly glimpsed the faint silhouette of his sister behind him. He spun around, no one was there. His eyes reddened as he whispered, "Little sister, wait for me. Tomorrow, I'll uncover the truth." His words faded into the silence, leaving only the long, haunting howl of the wind, a ghostly reply from the darkness beyond. At dawn the next day, fog blanketed the entire outskirts. From the inn window, Min saw pine canopies flickering like ghosts. He pulled on a thick coat, tightened his backpack, and prepared for a trip he knew would change everything. Fong arrived right on time, neat in an old moss-green jacket and worn shoes. Slung over his shoulder was a canvas bag with a coil of rope, a few flashlights, and a gleaming bush knife inside. Gripping the strap, Fong spoke sternly, "I'll say this first, the forest here is hard to traverse. If you don't follow my lead, you'll get lost." Min nodded, determination bright in his eyes. "We'll do as you say. Just get us to the right place." Adjusting her camera strap, Lan An still looked anxious but spoke firmly. "Let's go. The longer we wait, the darker it'll get." The path into the woods wound between towering pines. Wind hissed through the leaves, forming eerie, whispering sounds. Though it was morning, sunlight could hardly pierce the dense fog. Fong led the way, eyes constantly scanning, his hand never straying from the knife. He glanced back, lowering his voice. "Do you hear that? Footsteps, not ours." Holding her breath, Lan An pressed close to Min and whispered, "Don't say someone's following us." Min frowned, straining to listen. From deep in the forest came a slow, hollow clop, like someone walking deliberately. He tightened his backpack and spoke calmly but decisively. "Could just be wildlife. Let's keep moving." Fong's voice tightened, his eyes darkening. "I've guided many groups out here. That's no animal. That's shoes." All three fell silent. The fog thickened, veiling the trail ahead. The ground grew rougher. As they walked, Lan An snapped a few photos. Each time the camera flashed, strange, elongated streaks appeared in the frame, like a human shape being dragged. Shivering, she handed the camera to Min, her voice uneasy. "Look at this. There's something in the shots. That's not just fog." Min frowned, resolve unbroken but his tone lower. "Could be light reflecting. Don't overthink it." Lan An, standing beside them, Fong gave a quick glance and growled, "Cameras don't lie. In this forest, anything can be a bad omen." Lan An clutched the camera tighter, fear and curiosity warring in her eyes. A little farther on, they came upon a toppled, weathered wooden sign. The French lettering was faded but still readable. Min brushed off the dust and murmured, "Villa Montclair," the mansion's name. A chill ran through Lan An as her voice shrank. "It feels like it's calling us." Fong turned, gaze sharp and voice grave. "Once we pass this sign, there's no turning back. Do Do you still want to continue? Min lifted his head, more resolute than ever, answering without hesitation. We've come this far. I'm not going back. Lan An exhaled, fingers tightening around her camera strap. She spoke slowly. I won't leave you. Min, whatever happens, I'm with you. Fong nodded, his shoulders giving a slight tremor as if recalling an old memory. He tightened his grip on the knife and turned to lead on. They scrambled over a slick, stony slope, and at last a tall, rusted iron gate loomed into view, half open, half shut. Thick vines tangled across it, making the place seem like a massive creature that had slept for a century. Min stepped forward, his hand trembling as it touched the gate. It creaked open with a heavy, unnerving groan. He looked to Lan An, voice slow but steadfast. This is it, the haunted mansion. Swallowing hard, Lan An took a step back and whispered, It looks like it's been waiting for us. Fong scowled, eyes uneasy, but he pushed the gate anyway. Voice dry, We're here, so we go in. Watch every step. The front yard of the mansion was carpeted with dry leaves. Moss-covered stone statues standing solitary like lifeless sentinels. The windows were boarded with rotting wood, leaving only narrow dark slits that resembled watchful eyes. Lan An lifted her camera, snapped a picture, and shivered when the screen clearly revealed a shadowy figure standing at a second-floor window. Her hands trembled as she handed the camera to Min, her voice breaking. Min, do you see it? Someone's up there. Min peered closer, his heart pounding. He swallowed hard but forced himself to reassure her. It could just be the shadow of a tree. Don't panic. Fong glanced at the image, his eyes darkening, his grip tightening around the knife. He muttered under his breath, almost to himself, It's still there, it never left. Startled, Min turned to question him. What did you just say? You've seen it before? Fong stayed silent, eyes avoiding theirs, then turned toward the decaying wooden doors. With a harsh shove, he pushed them open, his voice icy. Get inside. Staying out here is even more dangerous. The doors groaned, the rusted hinges shrieking like a long, tortured scream. A blast of icy air surged outward, making all three shudder. Inside, the grand hall stretched into darkness. The ceiling loomed high, a shattered crystal chandelier dangling precariously. The wallpaper had peeled away, exposing damp, mold-stained brick. Min stepped forward first, sweeping his flashlight across portraits hanging on the walls. The painted eyes seemed to follow every movement. He swallowed again, whispering to steady himself. This house still carries its elegance, even after all these years abandoned. Lan An stayed close, her voice trembling though she tried to remain calm. But it feels like a tomb, one that's been forgotten. Bringing up the rear, Fong's sharp gaze swept the room. With a heavy sigh, he muttered, We must be extremely careful. From here on, nothing will be normal. At the center of the hall stood the enormous mirror Madame Tu had warned about. Its wooden frame, once exquisitely carved, was cracked and splintered. The glass was fogged and dust-coated. Yet when the flashlight's beam crossed it, a cold gleam flickered as though the mirror itself breathed. Min froze, his eyes locked onto it. His breathing quickened, and for an instant he saw the faint figure of his younger sister reflected behind him. Her eyes sorrowful. Lan An noticed Min going rigid. She grabbed his arm urgently. Her voice panicked. Min, don't stare at it too long. Madame Tu warned us. Jolted back, Min collapsed to his knees. Cold sweat drenched him, yet his eyes still burned with obsession. His voice came out hoarse, strangled. I just saw my sister. Fong's grip tightened around the knife, fear and fury flashing in his eyes. He barked in a sharp, low voice. Do you have a death wish? Don't let it drag you in. The entire hall fell into suffocating silence. Only the pounding of their hearts and the ragged breaths of three trembling souls remained, standing at the threshold of a deadly mystery. The air inside the mansion was suffocatingly still, as if the entire house were holding its breath. Watching the trespassers, Min wiped the sweat from his forehead, trying to steady himself after what he'd seen in the mirror. The flashlight in his hand quivered, lifting his gaze to his two companions. His voice rasped but carried firm resolve. "I'm sorry. I won't let it drag me in again. But we must keep going." Lan An kept her hand on Min's arm, worry clouding her eyes. In a low, deliberate voice, she urged, "Min, if it's too much, we should stop. Your sister, she may have only been an illusion." Min shook his head, gripping the flashlight tighter, his tone heavy. "Even if it was only an illusion, I need to know the truth. If I quit now, I'll live in torment forever." Fong stepped ahead, his flashlight beam sweeping across the faded paintings on the walls. The eyes in those portraits, dulled by time, seemed to glimmer faintly with each of their movements. His brow furrowed as he muttered grimly, "I hear something from upstairs." Sure enough, from the rotting wooden staircase came the creak of slow, deliberate footsteps. Lan An shuddered, clutching her camera to her chest as she whispered, "That's impossible. This house has been abandoned for decades. How could anyone be up there?" Fong tilted his head, eyes shadowed, his voice low as though not to disturb whatever lurked. "It's not anyone." Min's grip tightened on his backpack straps. Drawing in a deep breath, he declared firmly, "We're going up. I want to know who, or what, is up there." Lan An shook her head frantically, her hand clutching his arm, her voice trembling. "Min, you're insane. We've already seen signs of evil and you still want to go to it?" Min met her gaze, eyes torn between grief and determination. Slowly, he said, "If we don't face it, we'll never be free of this torment." Fong exhaled heavily, then stepped forward, his voice rough. "Fine, I'll go first, but stay silent, don't let it know we're coming." The wooden stairs groaned beneath their weight, every sound like a sigh from the past. Lan An followed behind Min, her hand trembling each time she saw cobwebs thick across the ceiling. She whispered, barely audible, "This place feels alive again." Min tilted his head, answering in a low murmur, "Maybe it never died." They reached the second floor. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with shut doors. Dark, reddish stains smeared the walls like faded handprints. The flashlight beams pushed back the darkness only to have it return. Swallowing everything, Fong motioned them to stop. He stooped and picked up a tattered old notebook lying at a doorway. Opening it, he muttered, reading broken lines in Vietnamese and French. September 12, 1942. The ritual failed. We could not banish it. It laughed in the darkness. It said it would take the blood of every member of the family. Lan An clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide. She whispered, choked, "My God, they knew there was no escape." Min snatched the book, his eyes racing across the pages. His voice shook, filled with horror. "It wants a soul in exchange. Without that, we'll all die together." Fong slammed the notebook shut, his expression taut, his voice was sharp. "Enough. Reading more will only weaken us." Min clutched the book, lifting his head to stare directly at Fong, his voice unyielding. "This is the truth I came for. If you're afraid, you can turn back." Fong narrowed his eyes, lips pressed tight. After a pause, he let out a weary sigh. "I turned back once before, and lost my best friend. This time, I won't run." Lan An froze, eyes locked on Fong, her voice shaken. "What do you mean? You've been here before?" Fong stayed silent, his face hard, hiding a wound that had never healed. Before they could speak further, a dragging thump echoed from the far end of the hallway, as if something heavy was being pulled across the floor. Lan An raised her camera with trembling hands and clicked the shutter instinctively. On the screen appeared a looming black shadow filling half the frame, its eyes glowing blood red. She cried out, voice cracking, "Min, it's there!" Min rushed forward, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness at the hall's end. But there was nothing, only emptiness. Silent as though nothing had ever been. Fong clenched his teeth, his voice a low growl edged with fear. "It's toying with us." At that instant, a door burst open. From the pitch-black room came a blast of icy air, carrying the foul stench of rotting flesh. Summoning his courage, Min stepped inside. The flashlight revealed a torn rug, beneath which lay a hidden trapdoor. Lan An covered her nose, her eyes filled with horror. She choked out, "That smell, There must be a body down there. Fong crouched, his hand gripping the iron latch. Straining, he pulled, and the hatch groaned open with a ghastly screech. From the pit of darkness below came a long, layered whisper, many voices overlapping. "Stay with us?" Lan An staggered back in terror, clinging to Min's arm, her scream breaking the air. "Listen, someone's down there." Min froze, his chest heaving. In that chorus of whispers, he clearly heard a familiar voice, his sister's. Shaking, eyes brimming with tears, he muttered, "Broken. It's you, isn't it?" Fong slammed the trapdoor shut with force. His voice lashed out, fierce and angry. "Don't let it trick you. That is not your sister." Min collapsed to his knees, his body trembling violently. Tears streamed down his face, mingling pain and despair. Lan An clutched his shoulders, her voice desperate. "Min, listen to me. You can't believe any voice in this place. If you do, we'll lose you forever." The hallway shuddered faintly, as if the mansion itself was mocking them. From afar, children's laughter rang out, bright yet warped, echoing from every direction. Fong's grip tightened on his knife, fear blazing in his eyes. Panting, he spoke a grim warning. "We've awakened it. From now on, there will be no way back." The air in the second-floor hallway was suffocating, heavy enough to crush the lungs. After the trapdoor slammed shut, the whispers seemed to recede, but they still echoed in Min's mind. He sat slumped on the floor, his vacant eyes fixed on the darkness. Lan An stayed by his side, her trembling hand resting on his shoulder. She shook him gently, her voice breaking with fear. "Min, wake up. You have to stand. We can't stay here any longer." Min lifted his head, his eyes bloodshot, shaking. He mumbled in a lost, disoriented voice. "I heard it. I swear I heard it. It was my sister's voice. She called my name." Lan An gripped his arm tighter, forcing her tone steady to calm him. "You misheard. It's just this place's trap. If you believe it, you'll be swallowed whole." Fong leaned against the wall, his hand clutching the knife so hard his knuckles turned white. He exhaled raggedly, his hoarse voice carrying the weight of someone who'd lived this before. "It knows everyone's weakness. For Min, it's his sister. For me, it was my best friend." Lan An whipped around, eyes wide, her voice urgent. "What did you just say? You heard it too?" Fong gave a small nod, his gaze fixed on the floor, unwilling to meet her eyes. His voice dropped, each word heavy as stone. "I came here once, 2 years ago. Back then, I came with someone, a friend like a brother. We heard the voices too. And then, he never came out." Min's body jolted. He pushed himself up, his eyes burning into Fong's as his voice broke with anger. "You knew this place was deadly, and you still let us in?" Fong lifted his gaze, pain glinting in his eyes. He let out a crooked, bitter laugh. "What choice did I have? Who would ever trust a man who left his friend behind in a haunted house and walked out alive? I've been haunted ever since. When you came to hire me, Min, I knew I had no way out." Lan An stared, her voice shaking with fury and dread. "You brought us here, just to redeem yourself?" Fong bowed his head, his voice rough, choked. "I want to end it all, even if it kills me." The silence grew thick around them. Min stood frozen, his rage tangled with pity. At last, he drew in a deep breath and spoke slowly. "Then from now on, we have to truly trust each other. Because if even one of us loses control, we'll all die here." Lan An gripped her camera tightly, her eyes resolute. She gave a small nod, her voice soft but clear. "Fine, but promise me, no more secrets." Fong forced a strained smile, tightened his grip on the knife, and nodded in agreement. Suddenly, the creaking of footsteps rose from the staircase again, this time faster. Heavier, like dozens of feet marching upward all at once. Lan An gasped, raising her camera as she whispered through rapid breaths. "It's coming." Min swung his flashlight down the stairs. Nothing, only thick darkness, waiting to devour the beam. All at once, every door in the hallway rattled violently, pounding as if someone trapped inside was screaming to get out. Fong shouted, his hoarse voice cracking with terror. Run, don't let it surround us. The three bolted for the end of the hall. Min clutched his backpack, Lan An clung to his arm, and Fong brought up the rear, knife raised. At the very end, a door burst open as if waiting. Inside lay a decrepit bedroom, its wooden bed rotting, the sheets stained dark brown. Panting, Lan An rushed in first, urging, "Close it, now." Fong lunged forward, slamming the door shut with all his strength. The room fell instantly into silence. Min pressed his ear to the door, sweat pouring down his face. He listened as the pounding outside faded, one beat at a time. Breathing out sharply, he turned to the others, his voice low. "It doesn't want to kill us right away, it wants to play." Fong sank onto the floor, his eyes shadowed, his voice was flat, broken. That's what it always does. It feeds on us little by little. And when nothing's left, it takes the soul. Lan An shivered, sitting on the edge of the bed, hugging her camera like a charm. She asked softly, "Fragile. Then what do we do?" Min sat across from her, flipping the old notebook open again. His voice rasped but carried determination. "Here it says, it stops only when a soul takes its place. Meaning, we have to find whatever was once used to seal it away." Fong's brow furrowed, his voice bitter. "Or, one of us has to be the sacrifice." The room fell silent. Wind whistled through a crack in the window, like mocking laughter. Tears shimmered in Lan An's eyes. She shook her head fiercely, her voice breaking. "No, no one sacrifices themselves. We'll find another way." Min stared at her for a long moment before nodding, closing the notebook. His tone was firm. "You're right, we'll find the sealing object. Giving up isn't an option." Fong sighed, his gaze darkening as he muttered, "Fine, but remember, it hears every word we say." At that instant, the mirror on the wall split with a jagged crack. From the fracture, a pair of glowing red eyes opened, locking onto all three of them. Lan An screamed, while Min and Fong jumped to their feet. Flashlights aimed at the glass. But the moment the light hit, the eyes vanished, leaving only the fractured, icy mirror. The air thickened again. Then, a child's voice rang out, clear, sweet, yet twisted, whispering right by their ears. "You'll never leave this place." The room was drenched in icy air. Their breaths rose in misty clouds as if it were the dead of winter. After the child's voice faded, silence reclaimed the space, though none of them dared to breathe too loudly. Lan An sank onto the bed, her trembling hands clutching the camera. Tilting it, she switched to rapid fire mode. The sharp clicks echoed frantically, as though she were clinging to reality. Fong shot her a look, his gravelly voice edged with reproach. "You still have the mind to take pictures?" Lan An lifted her wide, fearful eyes, her words stammering yet firm. I need to. The lens can capture what the eye can't. Without it, we're walking blind." Min stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. His gaze softened as he spoke quietly but firmly. "Keep shooting. Maybe this is the only way we'll find proof." Fong frowned but held his tongue. Instead, he gripped his knife tighter, standing guard between them and the fractured mirror. Lan An snapped a few more shots, then quickly checked the camera screen. Suddenly her face drained of color. Her hand shook violently, the camera nearly slipping from her grasp. She gasped, her voice breaking. "My God, look!" Min and Fong crowded in. On the screen, the image was clear. Instead of just the three of them, a long line of shadowy figures stood against the walls. Their faces were blurred, but every pair of eyes glowed red. Min shuddered, stepping back, his voice tight. "That's impossible." Fong narrowed his eyes, his expression rigid. He spoke slowly, each word weighted. "It wants us to know, we were never just three in here." Lan An clutched the camera to her chest, tears spilling as she shook her head, her voice breaking. No, it can't be." Min grasped her hand, his eyes steady, as if to lend her strength. He whispered, "Stay calm. Whatever it is, it only wants to scare us." Fong turned back to the mirror. The cracks had spread wider, webbing across the surface. His voice dropped, hoarse. "Fear makes you die faster. Keeping your mind sharp is the only way to live." Just then, the mirror flared with light. Min froze, his sister appeared within it, wearing the white dress she had died in, her tearful eyes gazing at him. Her familiar voice pleaded, "Brother, save me, I'm trapped in here." Min's body went rigid, his chest ached, and he staggered toward the mirror, hand trembling as he reached out. Lan An lunged, grabbing his arm, her voice cracking in panic. "Min, don't, that's not your sister." Min wrenched free, eyes brimming with tears, shouting, "But I see her, she's calling me. If I ignore her, she'll be trapped forever." Fong rushed forward, gripping Min's shoulders with force, his voice harsh. "Snap out of it, this is its trick. If you touch that glass, you'll take her place." Min thrashed, his eyes wild, his voice breaking into sobs. "No, I won't abandon her again." Lan An burst into tears, clinging to his arm, her voice choking with desperation. "Min, please, look at me. It's me, Lan An. Don't let it take you." In that instant, the image in the mirror warped. His sister's face split open, revealing beneath it a pitch-black visage with blazing red eyes and a mouth stretched in a manic grin. With a roar, Fong slashed the mirror with his knife. The crash rang out, shards exploding across the room. Min collapsed to the floor. Dazed, Lan An pulled him into her arms. Tears streaming, panting, drenched in sweat, Fong kept his eyes locked on the shards. Though shattered, each fragment still reflected those glowing, blinking red eyes. Lan An trembled, her voice breaking. It's not gone." Fong nodded grimly, his voice ragged. "No, only stalled." Min slowly lifted his head, his face pale, eyes still wet. He spoke wearily but with determination. "No, I won't let it control me again. Thank you both. Without you, I might have." Lan An hugged him tightly, sobbing, "Fool, don't ever scare me like that again." The tension lingered though the room quieted. Outside, the wind howled louder, as if the mansion itself raged at prey that refused the trap. Fong strode to the window, tugging the dust-laden curtain aside. He froze. Lan An noticed his face pale. She asked sharply, "What do you see?" Fong turned back, voice husky, trembling. "The main door, it's gone." Min and Lan An rushed to the window. Through the grimy glass, the front yard was visible, but the great wooden door had vanished. In its place stood a seamless moss-covered wall. Lan An staggered back, clutching her chest, her voice quivering. We're really trapped." Min's jaw clenched, his face taut. He turned to them, his voice low but resolute. "No, if the exit's erased, there must still be another. We have to go to the basement. That's where it all began." Fong nodded, a flicker of steel in his eyes. He said slowly, "Fine, if we're to find the ceiling object, the basement is the only place. But going down means facing it head on." Lan An wiped her tears, drawing in a sharp breath. She nodded, her voice firm though trembling. "Then we go. Staying here is just waiting to die." The three exchanged a look. In that fleeting moment, they understood survival now depended on trust. Min gripped his flashlight, Lan An held her camera close, and Fong raised his knife. Together, they stepped back into the thick darkness, moving toward the stairs. The child's laughter rang again, clearer this time, echoing through the hall. "Go down, we're waiting for you." The wooden stairs groaned with every step they took downward. Flashlight beams swept across thick layers of cobwebs and streaks of dried blood clinging to the walls. The air in the basement was heavy with dampness and a rancid stench, like something long dead yet never at rest. Min led the way, his beam trembling with each breath. He turned back to the others, his voice raspy. "Stay close. Don't let anyone drift too far." Lan An clutched her camera, her face pale. She nodded quickly, her voice shaky but determined. "Okay, I won't leave your side." Fong brought up the rear, the knife in his hand glinting faintly. His voice dropped into a grim warning. "Don't stare into the dark too long. It will change shape to lure us." They pressed deeper until the stairs ended in a cold stone chamber. Moss coated the walls, and blackened scorch marks stained the dirt floor. Lan An raised her camera and snapped a few shots. Under her breath, she muttered, "It feels like some ritual was held here." Min knelt, shining his flashlight over the ground. Circles drawn in faded blood stretched across the floor, mingled with Chinese characters and strange symbols. He frowned, whispering, "A sealing formation. Someone tried to bind it here, but failed." Fong stepped forward, his eyes darkening. He halted before an old wooden chest pressed against the wall. His hands trembled as they touched the lid. Min hurried closer, asking sharply, "What is it?" Clenching his jaw, Fong drew a breath and heaved the lid open. The hinges screeched in protest. Inside lay a bundle of human bones wrapped in decayed cloth. Atop them rested a charred talisman, its ink markings still visible. Lan An gasped, covering her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. "Oh God, that's—" Min leaned closer, his heartbeat racing. He brushed a corner of the talisman, his eyes flashing with recognition. "This is the seal, and the one who performed the ritual was a woman." Fong narrowed his eyes, his voice thick as if struck by realization. "I've heard the stories. Years ago, Madame Tu, the maid, she was the one involved in the ritual." Lan An whipped around, her voice breaking. "Are you sure?" Fong nodded slowly, his eyes filled with sorrow. His voice rasped. "The townsfolk whispered it for years, that she carried some sin tied to the family who owned this place. I never knew the details, but the signs match the rumors." Min's fists clenched, his face hard, his voice dropped, heavy with fury. "Then she's been hiding the truth. She knew this place was dangerous, knew the ritual failed, yet only gave us half warnings." Lan An shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. She whispered, "Maybe she couldn't bear to remember. Or maybe, she was afraid of what she herself unleashed." Fong sighed, his words dripping with bitter experience. "In stories like these, the living are often worse than the dead." At that moment, an icy wind howled through, snuffing out Min's flashlight. The chamber collapsed into absolute darkness. Lan An cried out, clinging to Min's arm, her voice shrill with terror. "Min, the light's gone." Min fumbled with the switch, but no light returned. Around them, whispers rose, layered voices of men and women, young and old, circling the chamber. "Who dares disturb our slumber? Who dares touch these bones?" Fong raised his knife, his voice tight with warning. "Be ready. It knows we've touched the thing that held it." Suddenly, the talisman in the chest ignited in a blaze of green fire, flooding the chamber with an eerie glow. In that light, a massive shadow pressed against the ceiling, eyes blazing red, a grin stretching ear to ear. Lan An screamed, snapping pictures in a frenzy. Each flash tore through the dark, capturing the nightmare. Min lunged forward, trying to snatch the talisman from the flames. He shouted hoarsely, "Don't let it burn out. It's the only thing keeping it bound." Fong slammed his knife down into the chest, pinning the bones as if to hold them in place. The shadow shrieked, a cacophony of laughter and sobs intertwined. Then, in an instant, the green fire sputtered and died. The talisman crumbled to ash. Darkness swallowed the chamber once more, the cold biting deep into their bones. Lan An collapsed to the ground, her camera slipping from her hands. She sobbed, her voice shaking. We just set it free, didn't we?" Fong gripped his knife, sweat pouring down despite the chill. His voice broke with despair. "Yes, that talisman was the last seal. Now, it's free." Min stood frozen, his eyes blank, Madame Tu's warning echoing in his mind. Asterisk. "Don't look into the mirror, or you'll never see yourself again." His fists clenched, his teeth gritted as he forced the words out. "We have to find Madame Tu. Only she can tell us how to end this." Lan An lifted her tear-streaked face, nodding fiercely, her voice raw but resolute. "Yes, if she hid the truth, then she must know more." Fong stayed silent for a long moment, his eyes dark. Finally, he nodded, his voice low. "If it's not already too late." The three turned and climbed from the chamber. Behind them, a child's laughter erupted, shrill, triumphant, echoing like a victory cry after decades of captivity. They left the basement with heavy steps. None dared to look back. for the sound of a child's laughter still echoed behind them, pounding in their skulls like hammer blows. The air inside the mansion grew suffocatingly thick, every slamming door seeming to conspire to keep them trapped forever. Min gripped Lan An's hand tightly, pulling her along. His voice was firm but trembling. "We have to get out of here now. If we don't find Madame Tu, we'll all die in this place." Lan An nodded hard, clutching her camera to her chest. Her voice broke as she replied, "I'll follow you. But, Min, your sister truly isn't here. I'm afraid the spirit is using her against you." Min froze for a moment, his eyes flaring with both pain and anger. He turned to her, lips pressed tight. At last he lowered his voice, hoarse and raw. "I know she's gone, but if there's even the slightest chance to understand what happened, I can't walk away." Fong trailed behind them, his back drenched in sweat. He tilted his head toward them, his gravelly voice edged with reproach. "Hope is the most dangerous thing in a place like this. The more you cling to it, the more it turns into a trap." Min didn't answer. He only tightened his trembling grip. The three followed the pitch-dark hallway until at last they forced open the mansion's heavy doors. The icy night air rushed in, and they breathed greedily as though they had escaped a tomb. Fog clung thick, pines whispered overhead, and the pale moon hung veiled as if by some unseen hand. Lan An collapsed onto the steps, hugging her knees as she shivered violently. Min placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone softer. "Stay calm. We're still alive. What matters now is finding Madame Tu." Fong scanned the surroundings, eyes sharp. His voice was grave. "I know the way to her. But we must hurry. That thing isn't bound anymore. It will roam these woods." They pushed forward down a narrow forest trail. Wet pine needles crackled underfoot. Every strange sound made their hearts lurch. Min swung his flashlight back and forth. Lan An walked between them, flinching whenever she felt a phantom breath at her neck, only to turn and see nothing but swirling mist. She clung to Min's arm, her voice quivering. "I hear someone following us." "Min, do you hear it?" He whipped the light around. "Nothing, only fog rolling like waves." His tone was hard, steady. "It wants us to panic. Don't let it win." Fong's voice cut sharp, commanding, "Don't stop, keep moving. Madame Tu lives in a hut at the end of this valley. Just over a kilometer. If we reach it, we still have a chance." They pressed on in silence. The buzzing of insects and howling wind stretched unnaturally long. Suddenly, a white figure darted across the trees. Lan An shrieked, clutching Min. "Someone's there." Min spun the light, catching only the flick of a garment vanishing into the dark. He shouted, voice cracking, "Wait, stop!" But Fong leapt in front of him, knife raised, eyes cold. "That's no person. Don't call out." Still, phantom footsteps echoed, pulling them deeper into the forest. Their lungs burned, hearts pounding, until at last a small wooden hut appeared by the slope, a dim oil lamp flickering inside. Fong lowered his knife and pointed, voice rough, "That's her house." Min rushed forward and pounded on the warped door, his plea desperate. "Madame Tu, open up. We need your help. If not, we'll die." Lan An pressed against the wooden wall, calling out through trembling breath, "It's me, Lan An. You remember me, don't you? We met at the market. Please, Madame Tu, open the door." Silence hung for several seconds. Then slow, dragging footsteps approached. The door creaked open, revealing an aged, withered face under lamplight. Madame Tu, in her faded brown blouse, stared at them with clouded, weary eyes. Her voice rasped low, as if rising from the earth itself. "You touched the chest of bones, didn't you?" Fong shuddered and nodded. He confessed in a trembling voice, "We saw the talisman, but it burned away." Madame Tu closed her eyes. Exhaling heavily, she turned her face aside, her words dry and lifeless. "Then it's over. It's been released." Min lunged forward, gripping her shoulders, his voice spilling out in anguish. "You know how to stop it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have risked everything to come here. Please, tell us the truth." Her frail hands clutched the doorframe. She trembled, whispering each word as if it drained the last of her strength. "The truth is, I was the one who unleashed it. Lan An collapsed at the doorway, her shaking hands covering her mouth. Her voice broke. You were the one who failed the ritual. Madame Tu nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Her words faltered, choked by sobs. I was a loyal maid in that mansion. When the omens came, they summoned a shaman, but during the ritual, I shattered it out of greed. I wanted the power for myself. The rite collapsed, and the demon possessed the family, slaughtering them all. Fong's grip on his knife widened. His jaw clenched. He growled, "So you let it kill everyone, and then hid the truth all these years?" Madame Tu bowed her head, tears streaming. She repeated through sobs, "I've lived my whole life in guilt. I tried to bind it with talismans, hoping to atone, but now, it's too late." Min's chest heaved as he glared at her, his voice blazing. "No, it's not too late. You must tell us how to seal it again." Madame Tu trembled, lifting her clouded eyes, a sudden fire flashing through. Her hoarse voice grew stronger. "There is one way, but the price, one of you must stay behind, to become its replacement." Lan An burst into sobs, clutching Min's arm, shaking her head violently. "No, we can't lose anyone else." Fong's hand shook as it gripped his knife. He muttered to himself, "Hollow punishment, one life for peace." Min drew a long breath, his face taut, but clarity sparked in his eyes. He turned to Madame Tu, his tone firm. "Tell us the ritual. We'll decide afterward." In the flickering lamplight, Madame Tu gazed at them with pity. Slowly, she nodded and began to speak. "Very well, I will tell you everything." The oil lamp in the hut flickered like a dying flame. The shadows of the four of them stretched long across the wooden walls. Warped and trembling, Madame Tu lowered herself into a rickety bamboo chair, her frail hands shaking as she poured a cup of cold tea. Her voice rasped heavy, each word dragged from a past drenched in guilt. "The sealing ritual is not like anything you've seen. It's not just talismans or blood circles. The demon spirit has fed on the blood of the entire family. To bind it again, one must willingly offer their body to imprison it." Lan An sat close beside Min, clutching her camera as if it were her last shred of courage. Her voice broke, her eyes red with tears. "You mean, someone has to die in its place?" Madame Tu gave a slow nod, eyes shut as if she could not face their stares. Her voice sank lower, hoarse and unyielding. "Yes, a life must become the vessel. When the ritual is complete, the spirit will be locked away, no longer able to harm the world outside." Fong tightened his grip on the knife until it squealed under his fist. He growled, anger choking his voice. "And what about you? You caused all this. Do you dare become the vessel yourself?" Madame Tu shivered. She bowed her head, one trembling hand pressed to her chest. Her voice faltered, barely above a whisper. "I am too old and weak. This body cannot hold it. If I try, the ritual will fail again." Min sat silent, eyes fixed on the earthen floor. His breath came short, his hands shaking. At last he raised his head, his voice low but burning with resolve. "If a sacrifice is needed, I'll be the one." Lan An spun toward him, tears spilling instantly. She grabbed his shoulders, her voice breaking in fear. "No, Min, you can't. I won't let you." Min gently turned, brushing the tears from her cheeks. His voice softened, though his eyes were steady. "I've lived a year haunted by my sister's death. If this is the way to end it, I choose it willingly." Lan An sobbed aloud, throwing her arms around him. Her voice cracked, trembling. "You're selfish? Have you thought of me? If you die, how am I supposed to live?" Fong stood watching, his eyes dark. He squeezed the knife harder, then exhaled, his voice heavy with sorrow. "If anyone should pay, it should be me. Years ago, I left my friend behind in that mansion. He never came back. Living since then has been my sin." Min stared at him, voice edged and fierce. "You can't atone by dying. What matters is making sure the ritual succeeds." Lan An wiped her tears, lifting her face to both men, her voice breaking with desperation. "Why must it always be death? Isn't there another way?" Madame Tu sighed, her aged eyes glistening. Her words came slow, hoarse but resolute. "If there were, I would not have lived in this nightmare for 80 years. Silence smothered the little hut. Only the wind hissed through the cracks, carrying an unnatural chill. Min bit his lip, then suddenly rose to his feet. He paced in the narrow space, eyes flashing with grim light. His voice rang clear and sharp. No matter who sacrifices, we must perform the ritual. If not, not just us, but the entire town will be consumed. Lan An clutched her head, tears streaming. She screamed, voice shredded by despair. I don't want to lose anyone. I can't bear another death. Fong slammed the knife onto the table. Both palms pressed hard to the wood. His voice came tight, unyielding. Face it, this isn't some fairy tale with a happy ending. Madame Tu looked at them, her gaze heavy with sorrow. She pulled a small wooden box from beneath the bed. Inside lay brittle yellowed papers and a vial of dried blood. Her voice fell like a verdict. These are remnants of the old rite. Tonight, when the moon is high, you must return to the mansion. Draw a new sealing circle and recite the chant. The chosen vessel must step into the center to lock the demon away. Min bent down, staring at the papers, his hand trembling. He looked up, voice raw. When does the moon rise? Madame Tu turned her eyes toward the mist-filled night beyond the crack in the door. In about an hour. Prepare yourselves. This will be the final battle. Lan An clung to Min, her eyes blazing through tears. Her voice cracked but carried fierce resolve. If one must be chosen, I won't let you or Fong do it. I'll do it. Min's face went white. He gripped her shoulders tight, shaking his head, his voice tearing out in anguish. No, I forbid it. You will not. Fong's eyes burned red as he watched. He spoke, hoarse but forceful. Enough. Everyone's eager to die, but what matters is choosing the right person to make the ritual succeed. Otherwise, every sacrifice is wasted. Madame Tu struck the table lightly, her voice slicing the room like a blade. He's right. The vessel must not only be brave but also face their deepest fear. Fail that, and the ritual collapses, and the whole world pays the price. The room sank into silence again. The three stared at one another, each with a fire of their own. Min's was determination. Lan An's was grief. Fong's was regret. The oil lamp guttered, and the shadows of the hut seemed to lean closer, as though waiting for their final answer. The moon slowly rose above the pine ridge, gleaming like a silver mirror hung in the heavens. Its cold light poured down, making the fog thicker, more haunting. The three, along with Madame Tu, retraced the forest path toward the mansion. Each step weighed heavy, not only with fear but with the shadow of death looming over their shoulders. Lan An walked beside Min, her trembling hand clutching his. Though her grip was firm, she lifted her gaze to the moon, her voice hoarse and choked. I still can't believe one of us truly has to die. Min squeezed her hand tighter, his eyes deep and unwavering, his voice low and hard. If one must be sacrificed to save many, then that's the price, but I won't let it be you. Fong walked ahead, the ritual knife pressed in his grip, his tall, lean figure silent. His voice came rough, like wind scraping stone. It should be me. You two are still young, with lives ahead. I don't. Lan An shook her head, tears pressing in her throat. No one deserves to die. Madame Tu leaned on her cane, her steps slow, her sigh was heavy. Her voice rasped like it rose from the grave. Life is unfair. Some deaths are penance, others are release. Prepare your hearts for either. The mansion loomed into view under the moonlight. Its windows were black voids, its moss-cloaked roof like a funeral shroud. The whole structure stood like a monstrous beast, waiting to swallow them whole. Fong drew a deep breath and shoved the heavy wooden doors open. They screeched wide, revealing a cavern of darkness. A rush of cold air swept out, laced with rot and damp. Min spread the talisman papers and the vial of dried blood Madame Tu had given him onto the floor of the grand hall. Lan An set down her camera, then knelt beside him. Together, their trembling hands traced the sealing circle in charcoal, line by shaky line, until the circle was whole. Madame Tu lowered herself to the ground, pulling a worn ceremonial blade from her sleeve. She placed it at the circle's center, her voice deep and rasping. When the moon reaches its peak, the spirit will take form. The one who volunteers must step inside, cut their blood, recite the chant. When blood and talisman bind, the spirit will be sealed. Lan An's eyes quivered as she looked at the circle. Then back at Min, she bit her lip, her voice breaking but firm. If someone must, it will be me. Min gripped her shoulders at once, his voice fierce. No, it will be me. Fong stood silent, his eyes blazing in the dark. His words came slow, each syllable clear. Stop arguing, it will be me. I owe it to my friend, and to my own conscience. The air tightened, stretched taut like a string ready to snap. The three stared at each other, none giving way. The oil lamp flickered, and wind hissed through the cracks, tossing the rotted curtains high. Then came a shrill, piercing laugh, long and grotesque. Children's laughter layered in, followed by pounding footsteps across the ceiling. An old painting tore free from the wall and crashed to the floor in a burst of dust. Lan An screamed, clinging to Min. It's here. Min pulled her behind him, his eyes flashing with resolve. His shout rang through the hall. Quick, into position. Fong lunged for the ritual blade, moonlight streaming through the window to cut across his gaunt face. He stepped into the circle, gripping the hilt tight. Madame Tu began chanting, her voice trembling but steady, strange syllables whirling through the room like chains. The mansion shook violently, doors slammed, wind howled and ripped at the tiles. From the center of the hall, a towering shadow rose like a column of smoke. Its eyes flared red, its mouth gaped wide, teeth jagged and endless. Lan An shrieked, her voice cracking under terror. My God, it's here. Min rushed toward the circle, ready to shield Fong. His shout broke raw from his throat. No, let me do it. Fong shoved him back, his eyes blazing, his voice a growl. Stay back, this is my sin. Let me end it. The shadow screamed, plunging down. The cold sliced their skin like blades. Madame Tu's chant faltered, then surged faster. Trembling with strain, Fong slashed the knife across his palm. Blood spilled thick onto the circle, seeping into its lines. He threw his head back, roaring the incantation, his hoarse voice beating like a war drum. The demon howled, diving into the circle. The ground shuddered, walls cracked, glass exploded into shards. Lan An clung to Min, both caught between despair and the faintest spark of hope. Fong kept chanting, his blood dripping endlessly. The circle blazed bright, flooding the hall in searing light. But then, the shadow laughed. Its voice thundered through the walls. One life is not enough. All three of you belong to me. Lan An screamed, eyes wet with fire. No, we won't let you win. She bolted toward the circle, desperate to stand with Fong. Min's cry ripped from him, strangled with terror. Lan An, stop. The hall erupted in blinding white. The demon's roar shook the earth, the mansion itself trembling as if ready to collapse beneath the storm of unleashed power. The light from the ceiling circle flared, then exploded into blinding streams of white. The entire room shook violently, shards of shattered glass glittering under the moon like 1,000 blades. The air grew thick, the stench of blood mingling with incense smoke into a suffocating haze. Fong stood in the center of the circle, blood dripping steadily from his palm into the runes carved across the floor. His face was pale, but his eyes remained unyielding. He roared through ragged breaths, each word hurled from the depths of his soul. Dark spirit, you are bound here not to spread suffering. End this. Lan An, ignoring all danger, rushed close to the circle. Tears streaked down her face as she screamed. Fong, you can't do this alone. If the price is one life, then we'll share it. Min lunged forward, pulling Lan An back with desperate force. His voice cracked as he yelled into her ear. No, Lan An, you can't throw your life away. If someone has to stay, it's me. Lan An struggled in Min's grip, her eyes blazing with both resolve and despair. Her voice broke as she cried. You still have a sister. You have to live to tell the truth. If anyone must remain, let it be me. Before them, the monstrous shadow writhed in fury, its twisted form shifting violently. Its eyes blazed like burning coals. its mouth gaping to reveal jagged fangs. Its laughter ripped the night apart. You think one person's blood is enough? No, all of you belong to me. Madame Tu knelt trembling on the floor, clutching the ancient scripture with both hands. Her voice rasped but pressed forward and chant. Hold the circle, don't let it break. If it does, we all die. Grinding his teeth, Fong raised the knife higher. His shout tore through the roaring wind. I'm not afraid anymore. I'll give back the life of the friend I wronged. He slammed the blade into the ground at the circle's heart. A red burst ignited. Thunder cracked, splitting the roof apart. The room was swallowed in searing light. Lan An screamed, clutching Min's hand. We can't let him die alone. Min gripped her tighter, his heart ripping in two. In the white blaze, he once more saw the faint image of his younger sister. She turned her back toward him, her whisper echoing from afar. Brother, don't let anyone else disappear. He staggered, his body cold with dread. Sweat poured down, his eyes filled with tears. Turning to Lan An, his trembling hand clamped her shoulder. His voice choked. I understand now. The cycle must end. But believe me, someone will stay behind. And it won't be you. Lan An lifted her tear-soaked face, her voice trembling with desperate plea. Then it can't be you either. We have to find another way. The wind howled. The shadow roared and hurled itself at the circle. The floor cracked open, icy breath rising like from the pits of hell. Fong screamed, his body shaking but unmoving. Come then, if one life isn't enough, take mine first. The shadow lunged straight at him, and the circle's light erupted. The mansion convulsed, beams splitting, planks crashing from the ceiling. Min and Lan An were flung backward, tumbling into a corner. She clutched him tight, eyes wide with horror as Fong's form was swallowed by light and shadow entwined. Madame Tu lifted her head, her aged eyes glistening, her voice hoarse with anguish. No, one life is not enough. It takes all three. Only then will the spirit rest. You must face your fears together. Min whipped his head around, his voice strangled. All three? What do you mean? Madame Tu cried out, her voice breaking with urgency. 3 souls, each must let go of their torment, bear the truth within their hearts. If even one denies it, the ritual will fail. Min looked at Lan An, then at Fong thrashing inside the circle. His heart hammered, his throat clenched. He knew a choice had to be made. Lan An grabbed his hand, her tear-filled eyes burning with light. She stammered, if that's the only way, then we must do it. But promise me, we'll walk out alive. All 3 of us. Min clasped her hand, his eyes blazing with resolve. He nodded hard, his voice booming through the storm. Yes, together we face it, together we end it. Hand in hand, they stepped into the blazing circle, where Fong still fought the shadow. The entity shrieked, its cry echoing through the mansion like insane laughter. Black arms lashed out, wrapping around the 3, dragging them into the vortex of light. In that instant, Min saw his sister's face before him. Lan An saw a faded photograph of a girl identical to herself. And Fong saw the hand of the friend he'd betrayed reaching from the dark. 3 fears, 3 pasts, 3 souls pulled into the spiral of fate. Light and shadow fused, devouring everything. The blinding light swallowed all 3, then suddenly snuffed out like a candle in the wind. Min jolted awake, feeling as though he had fallen into an endless abyss. No Lan An, no Fong, no Madame Tu, not even the decaying mansion, only a suffocating, pitch-black void pressed in on him. He stood alone, his steps trembling across the cold ground. Ahead, a faint glow emerged. Min recognized the figure of his younger sister. Queen, dressed in her familiar white dress. Her long hair hung loose, her pale face gaunt. She turned away, her voice echoing, distant yet intimate. Brother, why did you let me go alone? Min's throat closed, his whole body shaking. He rushed forward, his trembling hand grasping her shoulder. Queen, I never wanted to lose you. I've searched for you all this time, just to beg for your forgiveness. The girl turned, her face twisting grotesquely, her eyes sinking into black voids. Her voice warped into a piercing shriek. You couldn't save me, and now you won't save anyone. Darkness poured from her eyes, binding Min in chains of ice. He screamed, struggling to break free, but his heart sank under the crushing weight of that tragic accident etched into memory. Meanwhile, Lan An awoke in a seemingly endless corridor. Doors lined both sides, and from within came echoes of laughter and conversation. Yet whenever she peered inside, she saw only strangers' faces. They looked through her as though she had never existed. She ran, pounding on doors, her voice breaking with despair. "I'm here. I'm Lan An. Why can't anyone see me?" But the only reply was hollow silence. At the corridor's end, a massive mirror appeared. In it was not her reflection, but that of an older woman with her exact face. Eyes hollow and empty. The woman whispered, her voice icy. "You are nothing. You will be forgotten, as if you never existed." Lan An collapsed to her knees, clutching her chest. Her deepest fear surged forth, that she was only a shadow, destined to vanish from memory. Elsewhere, Fong awoke in a misty courtyard. Before him stood a young man, familiar enough to wrench his heart. Dung, the friend who vanished years ago when they first entered the mansion. Dung approached, sorrow in his eyes. "Why did you abandon me that day? Why did you run, while I was left behind?" Fong trembled, his knees buckling to the ground. Tears streamed as he stammered. I was afraid. I promised to protect you. But I ran. I've lived a coward's life ever since." Dung extended his hand, his gaze shadowed. "If you seek redemption, then follow me. Stay with me forever." Black smoke rose from the ground, coiling around Fong. He shook, struggling against it, yet his eyes softened, as if resigned to punishment. Around them, the wraith of the night's laughter echoed, dripping with scorn. "Three fears, 3 broken hearts. None of you will escape. You are mine, forever." Min cried out, his voice raw. "No, my sister, she isn't a demon. What I see is only illusion." He grit his teeth, wrenching against the chains of darkness. Blood seeped from his wrists. Yet he roared, "Queen, I accept the truth. You are gone, and I must live to keep your memory. Not let you become this." Her figure began to dissolve, her eyes softening, replaced by a glimmer of warm light. Min collapsed, but a bitter smile touched his lips. Lan An stared into the mirror, tears streaming. Her voice trembled but grew steady. "Even if no one remembers me, even if I vanish, at least I lived. And I loved." The woman's reflection cracked like shattered stone, crumbling to dust. Lan An fell, yet her heart felt freed of its invisible chains. Fong was dragged downward into the pit of smoke, but he raised his head, crying through tears. "Dung, I'm sorry. I can't change the past. But I will never run again. All life carrying your name, so you'll never be forgotten." Dung's hand paused, his eyes softened, and then he faded into mist. The black smoke receded, leaving an empty courtyard. The 3 collapsed in separate realms, but each had faced and accepted their fear. In that moment, a furious roar thundered like a storm tearing through space. "No, you cannot escape me." The ground quaked, the 3 realms collapsed, drawing them together. When they awoke, they were standing once more inside the sealing circle, its runes blazing bright. Lan An clutched Min's hand, her voice trembling yet resolute. "We've overcome it. Now only one step remains." Fong lifted his face, his eyes bloodshot but steadier than ever. "One must still stay behind. The ritual cannot end without a vessel." Min's jaw tightened, his hand gripping the blood-stained ritual blade. His voice dropped heavy as stone. "If someone must remain, then it will be me." The air grew heavy, the light of the circle flickering, as though waiting for the final choice. The air inside the sealing circle grew crushingly heavy, crimson light from Fong's blood fusing into the quivering runes. Wind howled, and the shadow spun around the circle like a raging storm. Each scream of the night wraith made the entire mansion quake. Min stood tall, gripping the ritual blade tight. His eyes blazed with resolve. His voice thundered through the collapsing room. "If someone must stay behind, then it will be me." Lan An staggered, her hands clutching at his sleeve. Her voice cracked, trembling with terror and despair. "No, Min, you've already lost your sister. You can't let yourself vanish too. Let me take your place." She turned her face, tears streaming. She shouted, her small shoulders shaking, "You still have to live. To write down all the truth. If you live, your sister's death won't be meaningless." Min turned, his trembling hand brushing her face. He whispered, his voice breaking, "That's exactly why I must do it. I've lived haunted, and I have to end it." Fong dropped to his knees, blood still dripping from his hand. He lifted his head toward the two younger friends, his eyes glowing with a strange light. His hoarse voice rang out, each word clear, like a final vow. "You two still have a future. The one who must stay is me." Min shook his head violently, his voice harsh. "No, Fong, you've already redeemed yourself. You don't need to die here." Fong gave a faint smile, sorrowful yet relieved. He exhaled, his voice rising with steady conviction. "My whole life I've lived a coward. I let my friend die, then drowned in guilt. But tonight, I get to choose again. And this time, I will not run." Lan An broke down in sobs, tears streaming down her cheeks. She shook her head, clutching his arm tightly. "But if you die, we'll never forgive ourselves." Fong smiled gently, resting his hand atop her head like a kind older brother. His voice was hoarse, but warm. "Forgive me, and live well. That's how you give meaning to my death." Min trembled, his hands gripping the ritual blade so tightly they shook. He wanted to protest, but Fong's eyes blazed like a dying flame, unyielding, beyond persuasion. In that moment, the night wraith shrieked louder. Furious, black arms stretched out, clawing at the circle. Its voice thundered, vile and filled with hate. "No, none of you will leave this place. You will all stay with me." Fong clenched the blade, raising his head high. He shouted, his voice booming through the mansion. "If you want someone, take me, but you will never touch them." He plunged the blade deep into his heart. Blood burst forth, scarlet flooding into the ceiling circle. Light exploded, blinding, consuming his body along with the shadow. Lan An screamed in anguish, collapsing into Min's arms. "No, Fong." Min held her tight, his own eyes burning red with tears. He roared into the crumbling air. "Fong!" The blinding white light swelled until it turned the mansion to ash. The wraith's final scream echoed, then vanished. Silence fell, swallowing everything whole. When Min jolted awake, he found himself lying in the middle of the living room. Lan An was right beside him, her eyes closed, but her breathing steady. Min's hands shook as he grasped her shoulders. "Lan An, wake up!" Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, then suddenly broke down in tears. The two clung tightly to each other, speechless. But within the ceiling circle, there remained only a smear of dried blood and the ritual blade buried in the cracked tiles. Fong was gone. Outside, the moon still shone bright, but the fog had begun to fade. The mansion stood silent, no more howls, no more chilling drafts, only the night wind whispering through shattered windows. Madame Tu staggered in with her cane. Her aged face was streaked with tears. She whispered, her voice trembling, "So, at last, someone has taken the place." Min forced himself to stand, his voice hoarse, straining to contain his grief. Fong sacrificed himself. "So, the curse is broken now, isn't it?" Madame Tu nodded, her cloudy eyes staring far away, as though piercing through time itself. She murmured, "The curse has ended, but the wounds in your hearts will remain forever." Min wrapped his arm around Lan An, and together they slowly walked out of the mansion. The moonlight poured softly over the forest path. No more cries, no more sinister laughter, only a heavy silence, like a tombstone for the souls imprisoned for so many years. At the edge of the forest, Min turned back. The mansion loomed in the mist, its moss-covered roof lying still beneath the moon. He whispered, his voice faint as the wind, "Fong, you will not be forgotten." Lan An gripped his hand tightly, her face wet with tears. She nodded, whispering, "We will live on for him." The two walked away, their silhouettes fading into the mist. Behind them, the mansion loomed in silence. In the darkest corner of the living room, the cracked old mirror reflected for an instant. Within it, Fong's gentle smile appeared, then dissolved into nothingness. Min and Lan An left the mansion, carrying memory and sorrow. The curse had been broken by Fong's sacrifice. But deep within lingered the question, was this truly eternal freedom? Or only a temporary mask of the night wraith? The mansion stood quiet beneath the moon, as if in slumber, or as if waiting for the next foolish souls. This story ends here. Thank you for listening until the very end. If you enjoyed it, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. It is the greatest encouragement for us to create more haunting tales for you. If you have any questions or notice any mistakes, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. And *bong toi trong dem *, will see you again in the next story.